Whether you're born to run or born in the USA, I can say confidently that Jeremy Allen White was born to play Bruce Springsteen, and I'm about to tell you why Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere is gonna deliver big on both its expectations and in capturing the real Bruce Springsteen. You see, Bruce Springsteen is not your average famous musician. He's a brand, he's a genre. I guess you could say he's the boss. And Springsteen is the working class poet of America, the man who built a career on anthems that sound like highways, steel mills, and hometown heartbreak. He spent decades playing marathon shows that feel more like baptisms than actual concerts. So how can any 2-hour movie distill that into something true? But the answer is simpler than you might think. Yes, I do believe that it can. And we become so used to career-spanning biopics that chronicle an artist's entire life, but not Deliver Me From Nowhere. It's based off of Warren Haynes' book, Deliver Me From Nowhere, a biography that zeroes in on a very specific timeline, narrowing in on maybe the most intimate, defining periods of Bruce Springsteen's life, the making of Nebraska. Which begs a very important question for the uninitiated. What the hell is Nebraska? Picture this. It's 1982 and Springsteen was standing at a crossroads. On one side, superstardom. He had already released Born to Run, the record that catapulted him from the Jersey Shore bar scene into rock's upper echelon. He had followed it with Darkness on the Edge of Town, my personal favorite Springsteen album, and The River. They're both albums that cemented his reputation as a chronicler of American dreams and disappointments, alongside being one of the greatest live performers of his generation. He was leading the E Street Band across sold-out arenas, and the industry was ready for him to double down and deliver something absolutely massive. So he began work on one of the biggest albums in the history of rock music, a compilation of songs that would eventually become Born in the USA. You know, the album with his butt on the cover. But on the inside, Springsteen felt something else entirely. He felt a heaviness, a darkness, a restless pull away from fame and towards something much quieter, lonelier, and deeply personal. Bruce Springsteen was depressed, and he was fighting a battle with undiagnosed mental illness alongside unrectified childhood trauma. He halted work on the Big Rock album and went back to the drawing board in near total seclusion. Bruce had another set of songs he wanted to demo, so he sat down in his bedroom in Colts Neck, New Jersey with nothing but a 4-track recorder, a guitar, and his own thoughts. And what came out of those sessions was far from arena rock. It wasn't even rock and roll. It was the album that would become Nebraska, a stark, lo-fi collection of songs about small-town tragedies, desperate men, and shattered lives. The tape hiss is audible. The recordings are rough, they're unpolished, they're imperfect. He wasn't trying to make an album. They were just songs that allowed him to emote his undefined feelings throughout. So he took the demos to the E Street Band and they tried to lay them down in the studio, and something just wasn't working. That's when Springsteen and longtime manager John Landau decided to push the record company to do something unparalleled. Release the acoustic demos as a first-of-its-kind DIY album. No promotional interviews, no radio play, hardly any advertisements, just raw music. The decision to do so didn't only result in a commercial success for Springsteen that remains one of the most groundbreaking albums in music history, but it also helped him understand his demons, and it allowed him to get back into the studio to finish Born in the USA. And that's the chapter of Bruce's story that Deliver Me From Nowhere chooses to tell. What happened before, and more importantly, what happened after that, they don't really matter. By focusing on the singular, fragile moment, these few months that the film is able to dive deep into, well, it sidesteps the pitfalls of most musician biopics. It doesn't try to cram an entire lifetime into a tidy arc of childhood struggle, meteoric rise, collapse, and redemption. No, that's cliche. Instead, it zooms in on a crucible. It captures Bruce not as a rock god, but as a man alone in a room, staring into the void of his own thoughts. Springsteen is in isolation. The title Deliver Me From Nowhere stems from a line repeated on the album a couple times. It's a drastic dream of life when it feels like you've been left behind. And this time, he's trying to decide what kind of an artist and what kind of person he's going to be. And that choice is everything. And it's what makes this film feel uniquely capable of capturing the real Bruce Springsteen. So to get to that emotional depth, you need one hell of an actor. Enter Jeremy Allen White. When his casting was announced, the reaction was immediate. Could the wiry star of Shameless and The Bear really transform into the boss? Springsteen's gravelly voice, his stage presence, his charisma, they're almost untouchable. But White didn't treat the role like an impression. He treated it instead like a transformation. He trained extensively in guitar and singing despite never having been a singer before in his entire life. He worked with coaches, recorded in Nashville studios, and he absorbed Springsteen's physicality, the way he hunches his shoulders, the way he digs into a lyric as though it's the only thing tethering him to earth. He approached it with the kind of obsessive commitment that mirrors Springsteen's own famously relentless work ethic. The result doesn't appear to be mimicry, though. It's embodiment. Early reviews have pegged White as a potential Best Actor contender for the Oscars. See, when White sings, it's not really about hitting every note perfectly, even though Springsteen himself said he was blown away on set by White's voice to the point that he didn't even know which one of them was singing in the recordings. But instead, White's main focus is capturing the vulnerability, the weight, the haunted hush that defined the Nebraska album. When he sits in silence, it's not that he needs to look like Bruce Springsteen. We need to see like we're watching a man who's wrestling with something much bigger than himself. White has showcased his range across his various projects, but as we've seen in the past, nailing the totality of a music legend in a biopic can land you some serious street cred in Hollywood. And this is his first leading role in a movie ever, and he was director Scott Cooper and Springsteen's first and only pick to play the Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. Springsteen also has said that despite being on set often, he nor Landau interfered with the direction of the film, the direction of the actual film, and the story. That's an extreme vote of confidence in both White and Cooper to effectively capture Springsteen's aura. But it's not just White's performance that makes this film feel authentic. It's that decision to frame the story around Nebraska. That album is the key to understanding Bruce Springsteen. Yes, his stadium anthems certainly matter. Yes, the E Street Band's Thunder matters, but Nebraska is the hinge in his career. The moment he chose honesty over spectacle, risk over safety. He could have doubled down on the stadium rock formula, and while it would have been easy, it may not have worked. Instead, he delivered a record so bleak and uncompromising that his label barely knew what to do with it. They even pushed back quite a bit. And yet, in its minimalism, it revealed more about him than any chart topper ever could have. By centering the film on that, Cooper makes a daring move. He isn't trying to capture the whole legend, he's trying to capture the man behind the songs. The man who couldn't sleep at night, who felt haunted by his father's shadow, who feared success as much as he longed for it. That level of specificity gives the story texture. It makes it real. Because the real Bruce Springsteen isn't just the guy leaping off pianos at Madison Square Garden during 10th Avenue Freeze-Out. No, he's the guy who spent hours hunched over a 4-track cassette deck, whispering songs about people the world forgot about. The supporting cast strengthens that vision as well. Jeremy Strong steps in as Landau. Stephen Graham plays Douglas Springsteen, Bruce's stern and complicated father, whose presence loomed over his son's entire creative life. Odessa Young, Gabby Hoffman, Paul Walter Hauser, Mark Maron all bring dimension to the web of relationships surrounding Bruce during this era. And behind the camera, Cooper brought his own grief and personal struggles into the process. He's spoken about losing his father during production, about seeing himself in Bruce's search for meaning, and that level of personal investment seeps into the film's DNA. It becomes a meditation on loss, on resilience, on art as a lifeline. So again, can the film capture the real Bruce Springsteen? Absolutely, unequivocally, yes. Because the real Bruce isn't defined by how many records he sold or how long his concerts last or how many encores he can deliver. The real Bruce lives in the tension between the myth and the man. He's the guy who can command a stadium but also vanish into the solitude of a bedroom recording. He's the guy who carried his father's silence like a weight, who turned the struggles of ordinary people into epic poetry, who never stopped searching for the line between darkness and light. Deliver Me From Nowhere isn't going to try to tell you who Bruce Springsteen is in totality. That would be impossible. Instead, it's going to capture who he was at his most unguarded and his most vulnerable. And in doing so, it captures something far truer than a surface-level impression ever could. Jeremy Allen White's total commitment to the role makes you believe it. The narrow, focused timeline gives the story honesty and weight, and together, they reveal Bruce not as a distant icon, but as a man trying to make sense of himself and the world around him. So when you walk out of the theater, you won't feel like you just watched a greatest hits package of Bruce Springsteen's life. No! You'll feel like you sat in that bedroom with him, hearing the songs take shape, feeling the ghosts gather around the tape recorder on a shag carpet. You'll feel the ache of a man at a crossroads choosing truth over comfort, art over expectation, and that quiet, aching, determined choice, that's the real Bruce Springsteen. So yes, Deliver Me From Nowhere can capture him. In fact, by focusing on the most fragile, unfiltered version of him, it may just be the closest anyone has ever come. Let us know your thoughts in the comments.